Good evening, everybody, and welcome. Today is another Thursday Talks event. We've had a series of really fantastic Thursday Talks this year. Today we have something slightly different. It's value-based business leadership. We have with us today a very eminent panel: Dr. Basil Chan, Professor at Centennial College; Ravi Nukala, President CEO Glentel Inc., and we have our very own moderator, Surinder Sharma, Vice President Director of Operations and Programs at the ICCC. And Surinder Sharma is also kind of expert on value-based leadership. So we will be listening to him as well, speak about it. We have a very special guest today, the Honorable Stephen Lecce, the Ontario's Minister of Education. So Honorable Stephen Lecce will be joining us shortly, and we will have a keynote address from him. So moving on, that is me there. I am Vijay Thomas, the President of the Indo-Canada Chamber of Commerce, and it is my pleasure to welcome all of you today. Those of you who've been joining us for every Thursday Talks or all our other webinars, welcome back again. Those of you who are coming here for the first time, thank you for making your time to come here today, but ensure that you put every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. on your calendar. Make sure that you've got ICCC Thursday Talks in there, because we've got a great event, great webinars coming in every Thursday, 4:30 to 5:30. So what are we going to be talking about today? So the concept of leadership is constantly evolving, right? From there's different constructs of leadership. People talk about the Churchillian leadership. Winston Churchill is one style of leadership. There is the Dalai Lama style of leadership. There is different styles of leadership. There was the Donald Trump style of leadership. So what style of leadership is the most effective? I mean, the jury's out there in terms of, what style of government is the best. Is it, communism? Is it democracy? There's lots of schools of thought. So today we're going to talk about value-based leadership, and we will come, a long way from, and we're especially going to talk about business leadership, how business leadership is no longer about just making profits, but it's how about looking about holistically the social aspect of it. So all of that, the moral aspect of it. So that's all of what we're going to be talking about today. So the leadership paradigm today embraces social good and a good, solid moral foundation. So values are becoming an integral part of the leadership, and value-based leaders and how they conduct is what the position they hold. So leadership is about earning confidence through example and actions so that people choose to follow, lead by example, and they're not forced to follow. So those are all aspects that we're going to talk about today. And we're now the new paradigm of value-based leadership. And I think that actually is a great timing, because we've got the Honorable Stephen Lecce join us, and we'll give him a few minutes to join. But as he joins in, we'll go through our legal disclaimer. This is something that we just put in there so that nobody can sue us, and nor can we sue anybody. So the information provided at our webinars is for general information purposes only, does not constitute legal or professional advice. There's a bunch of other things in there that you can read. And at the bottom, that's also quite important. The views expressed by speakers are their own personal opinion, do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the ICCC. So with that out of the way, I am hoping we've got the Honorable Stephen Lecce in there. I do see him on the screen. We don't see him as yet, but we can see that he's logged in. So we will probably give him a minute more. The Honorable Stephen Lecce, I have school-going kids, and he's become quite a popular person, because my kids now know who the know of the Honorable Stephen Lecce, and they're like, the Honorable Stephen Lecce is he's going to decide whether I go back to school or not. So I don't know if the minister is listening to us, but Minister Lecce, you are now quite the popular person in Ontario. Every school-going student knows of you, and we thank you for the work that you've been doing and keeping Ontario and Ontario schools safe. So give me a moment. I think I got a message here. We're okay. It says the minister will be joining very shortly. So um, now that I've got that message, we'll just give him maybe a minute, and if not, we can move on. But we will give him a minute. So as we wait for Minister Lecce, I'd like to address everybody on Zoom as well as on Facebook. If you have any questions, please send it to us in the comment section in Facebook, as well as there is a Q&A section here on Zoom. So if you can please send that to us, we will make sure that those questions are sent to the panel through our moderator, Mr. Sharma, and we will make sure that your questions are answered. Okay, so until that comes by, very good suggestion there from Yvonne saying, can we tell us about ICCC? Yes, fantastic. We've got some time here. So the Indo-Canada Chamber of Commerce is a 44-year-old organization, and I am the 32nd president. So it is quite the honor to be the head of such a prestigious organization. The organization primarily deals with trade in the Indo-Canada corridor, and we represent, our membership is primarily business owners, Indo-Canadian business owners, as well as Indo-Canadian business professionals. However, that does not, you don't have to be Indo-Canadian to be a member. We have people from all ethnic backgrounds, and so anybody is welcome to become a member. If you're interested in India, if you're interested in Indo-Canada trade, please look for the membership. We are right now running a promotion until the end of February. There's 20% off our membership. The membership is usually $150. It is now $120 for the year. And what does that get you? That gets you access to a lot of webinars. Nowadays, all of this is obviously available to everybody, but we have membership-only webinars, networking, ability to work on committees, ability to work with business leaders, ability to work with business leaders not just in Canada but also in India. And we have also an annual trade mission. This year we're having a trade mission to 10 states in India. So it's 10 states, 10 days. So we're going to be going to 10 states in India. We have a business delegation from Canada of almost 50 people, of which we have every level of government participating, and this will be towards the end of April. So if any of you are interested in business or considering setting up business, either exporting to India, importing from India, or having some India connection, or wanting to represent some companies from India in Canada, please get in touch with us. And also we'd love to have you on our trade mission. So if you have any other questions about the ICCC, please let me know. I will try to answer those questions as we wait. Now, if it's going to take a little longer, then we might as well get started. Okay, we've got Minister Lecce here. Minister Lecce, we can't see you. Okay, so I think maybe Minister Lecce is in the, he got into the other side. Okay, we're going to put you back in. Oh, there you go. Promote to panelist. There you go. Okay, there we go. We're so sorry. Minister Lecce, welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so I was just saying that, everybody in Ontario, especially that have kids, the kids know of you very well now, given the fact that, is school going to start, not going to start? My 10-year-old knows you. So you're a very popular person. And we also want to thank you on behalf of, everybody in Ontario, especially those with kids, for keeping the school safe and working hard for all our betterment. So with that out of the way, we'd like to welcome you to this event, and we'd like to get right into it and put you on the spot and hear what you have to say, and we'd like to hear a few words from you. Over to you, Minister Lecce.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the welcome to, of course, the Executive Director, to our President, Vijay, to everyone joining. Good afternoon, good evening. It's a pleasure to be here. I obviously am very excited about the opportunity to speak with the Indo-Canadian Chamber, recognizing the role you play in supporting economic growth. And I think as we deal with the pandemic, we are, so often reminded by the difficulties as a society, the difficulties we face as a country. And yet we ought not forget what good is happening in this country. And I can't start by not recognizing the leadership in India in the context of the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine, which has played a dramatic positive role in reducing transmission. And of course, with the Health Canada today approving it, I think it adds a great sense of momentum that we are going to get through this darkness. And of course, leading the way is a balance of Indian innovation and entrepreneurship, working with some of the best minds in this country here in Canada. And I'm very proud of that history, very proud of that heritage, and proud of the work the Indo-Canadian Chamber of Commerce does in helping to link those bridges, helping to bring people together and move ideas from the boardroom to the laboratory, commercializing them to concepts that could make a difference in innovation, in entrepreneurship, and of course in education. I'm here in part to speak a bit about our focus on education, our focus on creating a digital innovation for learning that I think is really critical, because there's such a static nature of education in Canada. The systems have not been well aligned with the labor market. We've got a curriculum teaching students elements that are just not relevant. I mean, to contextualize the challenge, you may remember I announced a new math curriculum from grade 1 to 8. The last time the elementary math curriculum was updated, YouTube was not a website, 2004-5. I mean, it's comical if it's not sad that it took that long to get the province to upgrade our math curriculum so that for the first time, children are learning STEM education, that every child from grade 1 and up, mandatory learning when it comes to coding, mandatory learning on financial literacy. I mean, these are just common sense changes to our curriculum to make it relevant and to really help young people succeed in the labor market. But I do want to speak a bit about what we're doing in the broader sense, because in addition to education, I'll speak a bit about that. We want to make sure our businesses are succeeding. And one of the things the government launched that I thought was actually very helpful was what government's Main Street Recovery Plan. And the premise of the plan really is to support modernizing the regulations, reducing red tape, cutting back on the administrative burden that hurts so many of our small business operators in the province, especially when you remember, respectfully, under the former government, it was, we really saw red tape increase dramatically. We've built e-commerce tools so that you can do more business online, trying to encourage, incentivize businesses to participate in the online marketplace. We've also provided PPE grants for Main Street businesses to keep you, your employees, and customers safe. Those are just some of the elements in the plan about lowering your costs, increasing exports, developing talent, accelerating technology adaptation and adoption, and encouraging entrepreneurship is the center of what we're trying to do in the province of Ontario. Now, we've made this support available for small businesses because we recognize how critical they are for our economic recovery. Now, I'm proud to join you really on behalf of our Premier I was asked to speak really about the values, value-based leadership, value-based education, the approach that influence our government's, understanding of how students can receive the tools they need to succeed in the marketplace. Because I would argue this country, we have an opportunity that we should seize. And that opportunity is so much about unleashing the full potential of young people in the province of Ontario. And like many of you, my parents were immigrants. Perhaps some of you were immigrants yourselves, but we share that immigrant work ethic, that respect and commitment to education, the love of family. I think those are the values that inform me as minister. And when I was elected in 2018, we made a commitment to Ontario families in the interests of advancing the values of those families, of hardworking, law-abiding people. We saw a lot of, let's say, an abdication or a dismissive approach to what those core values tell us about. And so we saw school closures, the largest school closure program ever unveiled in the province's history under the former government or Premier Wynne at the time, and juxtapose, contrasting that approach to a government that is investing $13 billion over the next decade to build new schools, to ensure your children are learning in modern education spaces, to give them not just safety, but give them access to digital learning materials that I believe can really help support their learning, and more importantly, give them that competitive advantage we want. Because the theme today is about creating a competitive advantage. And it comes by, yes, leading the province through difficulty, but doing what's right, knowing who we serve as public servants. And for me, my services and my commitment is to the students of this province, the next generation, and I will not be deterred from achieving that mission, even if it is tough, even if it is difficult, even if I'm attacked every day from some, it does not matter. I will not be deterred from achieving the mandate that I think young people want, which is a minister of education that is committed to them, to building up a skills economy so that they can get a job, a good job, not any job, but a good paying job. And let's just define the problem. In this country, we have a youth unemployment rate that is twice the average of the non-youth constituency. We have twice the rate of youth unemployment in this country. We have young people who still cannot afford a home. That opportunity society that so many of us came to this country seeking, we want to restore. We want to give these young people hope and access to education that leads them to a job. And that's why we're modernizing the curriculum. In the context of leadership, we talk about doing what's right, not necessarily what's easy. And there was a massive pressure on me in the spring, in the pandemic, to not introduce a new math curriculum between grades 1 and 8, suggesting that, that is not a priority in the moment. And I'd argue, look, our kids should not have to wait for a pandemic to end or to start. They should not be the byproduct. They should not have to be delayed when it comes to giving them access to a modern document that actually teaches them skills they can monetize in the workforce, that can help them get a job, help them succeed in life. So we've driven forward with a program focused on financial literacy and STEM learning, investing $200 million over 4 years to build a math specific strategy to improve scores and improve numeracy and financial literacy of our young people. That's an innovation we led. Talking about doing what's right, not necessarily easy, I also impose that for every teacher in the province of Ontario, if you want to graduate, if you want to graduate this province, you have to be able to complete successfully a grade 9 math test. Because I want to make sure that every educator in Ontario has those fundamentals of mathematics. And I can assure you, I heard from them. They, not everyone appreciated or necessarily wanted that act. But at the end of the day, my decision point was made premised on doing what's right for our children and making sure that the curriculum actually teaches them skills they need in the broader economy. And so we did that. We launched a new curriculum in the midst of the pandemic, no less. The only problems to do it, putting coding down to grade 1, putting financial literacy down to age 1, mandating in the province of Ontario, mandating better training of our teachers, mandating a test. If you want to teach, you have to pass that test. We are improving the standards, because I believe in this province, we need to lead the nation when it comes to pedagogy, when it comes to learning that is relevant to what parents want. And I think what parents wanted from me was to be strong in the interest of fighting for our young people. And that's what we're going to do. That is what we're doing every single day. And I don't apologize. Even if, there's opposition, I often recall, by Sir Winston Churchill, to never give up. And I think that's the spirit that this province has really embraced during the pandemic. And it's one that I think our public servants should continue to do. So there's no doubt that math skills we know are relevant. They're critically important to these young people's success and for their future employers. So the entire field of study, from engineering, healthcare, computer sciences, all require, even in healthcare itself, as we're seeing such a massive interest in the high proficiency in mathematics, we know that is a prerequisite for young people to get access to employment. And there's a growing demand in the labor market for proficient workers to fill these high paying jobs. That's why we introduced the new math curriculum for grades 1 through 8. It's why we mandate the coding and starting in grade 1. And we're now one of only 2 provinces to do that in the nation. And we're going to continue to lead, continue to help. We also realize in our curriculum, in the context of how we define leadership, is making sure that we seize opportunities presented to us. And I think for so many young people, they want to get a job in the skilled trades, but they're unable to. They're unable to get a job because, to be fair, the system, our guidance counselors, our curriculum itself, is not in any way helping promote the incredibly good paying jobs that can exist within the skilled trades. And that's a disservice to so many of you who are in business that need talented workers. And we need more young people to be entering our workforce, because look, with the baby boomers exiting the workforce, we are going to have, we already have, but we're going to soon have a massive gap in skilled labor. Why do governments wait till the problem is explosive to start to tackle it? It's what frustrates people about government. I don't care what the party is, what the color is, it's a problem. So for us, we're trying to get ahead of it. We're trying to get ahead of where the puck is going by ensuring that there's a strong incentive and investment to destigmatize the jobs in the skilled trades, because often these are entrepreneurial, well-paid, dignified jobs. And the truth is 1 in 5 jobs really, will be in the skilled trade sector over the coming years. And so they're critical, but they're hard to fill. And I've heard that from businesses in the Indo Chamber, as well as other chambers and boards of trade that have sort of said, look, we need skilled labor, and we're committed to helping to create that pipeline to our industry, to our commerce, to our retail sector, to all of you, because we know how important it is that we start now to fix the problems that we already face, but we start to foresee them compounding over time. We also want to encourage, more young women to enter into STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. The truth is, 34% of bachelor degrees in science, technology, engineering, or math are women. Young women. Only 23% of the STEM workforce is women. And I think we could do better than that. For your daughters and grandchildren, I just think that we ought to be, as a country like Canada, prosperous and free in this country. I want young girls to see themselves to become doctors and engineers. I want them to know that they could achieve their full potential. And what I want to do is I want us all in the Ministry of Education, our school boards, and in every single classroom in the province to remind our young people that, especially our young girls, that they can achieve that type of excellence, that they can get a job leading in our labs, in our areas of discovery, and in healthcare. And I think really education is essential to help support that upward mobility, the lifelong success. But the only way kids can learn is if we ensure that our schools are safe, that they're welcoming, they're inclusive centers. And I think one of the things I've been working on is to shape the leaders and the decision makers of tomorrow around values, motivating them to serve, to see public service as a calling, as a force for good, and really to understand the principle of personal responsibility. That it's important that we give back, that we are generous, that we are patriotic, that we give our full commitment to this country. And I think that's the spirit of the Indo-Canadian community. I think it's the truth and my own experience with the Italian community. I mean, people who chose Canada. It wasn't an easy way to get here for my parents, who took a boat to Pier 21 for my mom, and to Ellis Island in New York for my father, both coming to Toronto eventually. It's just fascinating to think of just one generation ago, they sacrificed to get here, that their son could be the Minister of Education, the youngest in the history of this province and country. That is not a unique story, because there's many firsts, there's many incredibly bold people well before me that have created this type of opportunity. But to think that one generation ago, my parents, who had no money, couldn't speak English, didn't have a dime in their pocket, all they had was the greatest currency known to them, which was hope and a determination to do better for their children, to sacrifice so that I could achieve dreams that they couldn't even imagine. And so that's the story of Canada, one that I'm proud of. And to be fair, one that I think resonates with a lot of you, because that is your story. That is the truth of so many of our entrepreneurs and our successful leaders. You came here, you contributed, you gave back, you succeeded, and you created opportunity for your children and grandchildren. And for that, I just want to say thank you for your ongoing sacrifice. But one of the things we want to do is we want to make sure when a person comes here, they're not judged by the color of their skin. They're not held back by their gender. They're not discriminated because of their faith. That is not what this country stands for. We are a country that upholds the value of freedom, of human rights, and of civility. That's, I think, really important. I mean, look at the middle of the pandemic. You say what you like about our political leaders, but I think it's a strength that our premier, progressive conservative premier, working with a liberal prime minister, came together. Very different people. They are very different politicians. I don't even have to pretend like they've got much in common. But look, while I may not have voted for Justin Trudeau, it's shocking for you to hear. The bottom line is, it's a strength that our premier is on the phone with this man, and the deputy prime minister on the phone every single day. They forged a relationship. They put the country before their party. That's why I'm proud to be Canadian, because that's not the truth in every country. Look to the South, look to other places around the world. And I think for all of our imperfection as political leaders, and trust me, there's tons of that in government, I think the fact that our leaders are committed to putting people ahead of party is a strength in our country. And what I want to make sure is that when young people, when it comes to the value systems that underpin them, that help motivate them, that they're judged on their merit, that our leaders, like our students, are judged on their ability, on their merit, on their competence, on their hard work and their work ethic, not on their faith, not on the color of their skin, not on their place of birth, not on their income or orientation. That is irrelevant. That is not a prerequisite to know if you're a decent person that's going to make a difference in the world. And so we have challenges in Ontario, targeting, anti-Black. There's been acts of racism against Sikhs and Hindus, against East Asian communities, including Chinese. We've seen acts of against the Jewish community and anti-Semitism. I mean, the fact is, as amazing as this country is, and trust me, there's no greater country on earth than this country in Canada, we still have issues related to race. And that's why I've taken significant action in the Ministry of Education to remove those systemic barriers that held these kids back. And I think that's really important. One of which is really working to ensure that students that were not achieving have more supports to lift them up, not bring other people down, lift everyone up with more supports, particularly in math and English, so that they can get ahead. We've also ensured that, a variety of new actions in our curriculum so that people could see themselves, that students could see themselves reflected in the curriculum. More diversity, which I think is a true representation of Canada. Pardon me. And the one thing that I'm most excited about is that there was a regulation that the former government, it would have been Premier Wynne, allowed Regulation 274. You may have heard me say this before. This regulation ensured that 100% of hiring in the Ministry of Education, of every single teacher in Ontario, was hired based on their union seniority. Not allowed to be hired based on their merits, based on their diversity, based on their education, qualification, or experience. Meaning, for a decade, we did not have a meritocracy. We had no way for an educator who worked hard, who was strong and innovative and, honestly, just incredible by any objective standard. That young educator couldn't get a job because he or she had to wait behind someone who's been in the union longer because of seniority. That regulation was proudly scrapped and eliminated, and it's now part of our history, because in this province, under our premier, we're making sure that hiring is based on merit, restoring the meritocracy our kids deserve. Because at the end of the day, as a parent, you will know all that matters is that you have the best child in front of your class. And I'm proud to say that is precisely what we have done. I also just want to note that part of unleashing the potential is recognizing the mental health elements of education, and we are very sensitive to this. We're very committed to this. We are, want to be part of the solution, because to be fair, as I think all of us will acknowledge, the pandemic has been tough on everyone, obviously, but I think our kids especially. And I think that's why we put in place $52 million more in emergency pandemic funding for special education and mental health, to make sure that when a child in grade 4 or a child in grade 11 needs access to a psychologist, a psychotherapist, a social worker, they get it. That's what you deserve: access to services that are going to make a difference for your child. And that's why we have massively stepped up hiring of more mental health workers, and $50+ million to deliver on that. In addition, School Mental Health Ontario was provided to school boards. An investment to School Mental Health Ontario was provided to school boards, which I think is really critical, because that's allowing this organization called School Mental Health Ontario, led by medical doctors who have built documents and curriculum to make sure that positive mental health is mentioned in all of our classes every single day. We're really trying to build up that capacity. We've also taken action. One of the first jurisdictions in the industrialized world last March to close schools when the pandemic first struck. Then I said, look, my commitment is to get kids back to school. And as loud as the teacher unions were saying that schools were not safe, every single doctor, virtually every single medical leader, the hospital for sick children, the chief medical officer of health, the list goes on, of leading medical leaders who said, no, schools are safe, schools are essential, and our children have a right to be in them. And thank goodness we have a premier, and in my own limited way as your Minister of Education, that I'm going to continue to follow my true north, which is a value system that I abide by recognizing, who am I here to serve? I'm here to serve our students. They deserve to be in class. It may not be easy. It may be challenging and uncomfortable, but we're going to do what's right. And that's why I was very proud to get kids back in school in September, against the advice of opposition parties, against the advice of the teacher unions. Now, look, I'm not here to, it's just a matter of fact. They didn't want us to reopen in September. They then wanted us to close in October. They didn't want us to open in January or in February. And look, my guiding light in this pandemic, and part of the leadership skills I think that we need to emphasize more on, is knowing your strengths. I am not a doctor. I am not an epidemiologist. I am not a pediatrician, and I'm not a mental health expert. What I am is someone that surrounds myself by smart people who can give me that good advice, which is why I built a relationship with Dr. Khan, the CEO of Sick Kids, and why I've been able to build a professional relationship with other medical leaders, medical officers of health, because they have guided our decisions, and they've made it clear we've got to get these schools open. There's nothing more important to the health and safety of children, which is precisely what we've done, following the advice of the Chief Medical Officer of Health, fully funded by this government, $1.6 billion. The largest investment of any province in the nation is this government, is this province, leading the way by getting all students back. And to be fair, we took a very cautious approach to our reopening. And I mentioned this before in one of our last summits, but the truth is, when we look to getting kids back to class, for me, this was an absolute essential imperative. Nothing matters more. So when I had to make the decision on extending over Christmas, when all the kids, you heard the news that they got together, and the positivity rate, all the cases were increasing with students because they were over the break, over the holidays, getting together. I made a decision based on the medical advice to extend the school closure. And eventually we got to a point where we're like, okay, let's reopen schools. It's safe. The community numbers came down. I was the only Minister of Education, and our government was the only one in Canada that waited until community numbers came way down. Most provinces just got the kids back early January. We were cautious. We didn't take a risk with your child. We never will. And so we're going to continue to follow the advice, continue to make investments. 95% of our schools have improvements to air ventilation systems, to the HVAC systems, for example. We have 3,300 net new temporary teachers working with our schools, funded by our government, another 890 to be hired. And of course, we have more custodians, 1,400 more custodians, 400 being hired. We have an investment in cleaning and additional supports in expanding access to asymptomatic testing for students that don't have symptoms, making it voluntary, always. We respect that you make the decision as the parent, but we're putting it in your community. We're putting it literally in your community, in schools right around the corner often, so that you can choose on your time to drop off your child and get a less invasive test. It could be we're doing saliva tests. Now we're doing the lower nasal test. And I think this is very positive for students, and most especially it encourages participation because it's not a painful exercise. So very reassuring that we're expanding testing, 50,000 tests each and every week. We have capacity for. We've enhanced the screening of a child before they enter a school. And we've done this part of a broader vision. We've cohorted the kids because we want to make sure kids can be kids. They can still play. They can still enjoy the benefits, the social benefits, but that we keep them safe. And in this province, 8 in 10 schools, it's actually more like 8.5 in 10 schools have no cases of COVID at all. The fact that 99+% of students don't have an active case demonstrates to me that the parents are doing their part, keeping the kids safe, and most importantly, it demonstrates that our schools have been safe. So we're proud of the work we're doing. We're grateful for the partnership. We know that when it comes to protecting children, we will take no risks. And it also, I think, underscores for me what it means to be the Minister of Education at a time of crisis. The one constant in my time, and I say it's a great level of humility, but it's been trying to, as the expression goes, see the forest from the trees. Remove myself, take a step back. I got into this, got elected. A year later, I'm an MPP. I was a parliamentary assistant to the Minister of Infrastructure. I was the deputy House leader, and then the parliamentary assistant to the Premier. But I was not a minister for the first 12 months. Then on month 12, I get appointed minister by Premier Doug Ford. Every politician wants to be a minister. Okay, don't listen to them. It's a dream. And then you get it, and I'm told I'm the Minister of Education in the middle of a long negotiation, a protracted negotiation. So now I'm thinking, oh my goodness, this is going to be an interesting experience. The first time in cabinet, I got thrown a bit into the deep end, if you will. And yet, what was inspiring me then, as it does today, is that I didn't get elected to be popular. I didn't get elected to be loved, because I got in the wrong business to do that. I got elected to do what's right. The legacy of truth, that we always stand up for those that we believe need a voice. And our young people need a voice in government. We are spending money, with federal government at so many levels of government, spending more than we have. It's our kids that will pay the consequence, the intergenerational debt borne on them. It's our children that can't get a job, our children that can't afford a home. And it is the young people that need that voice. And I'm proud that our Premier has given voice to the next generation of people, of leaders in Ontario to step forward and to make a difference. And it's an honor to serve 2 million children. I'm responsible for almost 500,000 kids in childcare within a dynamic team, some of really strong, capable, decent people who came to do the same, to make a difference. And I just want to say, I'm very proud of what we have done. Merit-based hiring, brand new STEM-oriented curriculum that positions Ontario as the global leader in STEM education. I'm proud that we have led the only province to offer online learning. It was opposed, you remember, a year ago before the pandemic, only for us to be proven right that it's the thing we needed. It's the backstop we needed, thank goodness, to keep these kids engaged in learning. And it's a choice, which we will always respect. We are proud of the work we're doing, but it's because of the voices of our communities. It's because of the good ideas from the Indo-Canadian Chamber, from many of you who have worked with and shared perspective and counsel and constructive criticism of how we can be better and better serve you as we get through this pandemic. But I remain hopeful in my heart. I remain grateful to every one of you for continuing to be generous. I know the Indo-Canadian Chamber has really stepped up in a major way to give back, to help many people who need it. And I think that's the spirit of our province, the best of our country. So I just want to say, it is an honor to be with you today. It's a great privilege to speak with you tonight. And I just want to again, thank you all for the work you're doing on the front lines, helping to create jobs, protect jobs, and help this country get through this recovery. Because I worked for Prime Minister Stephen Harper in the 2000 for almost 6 years. And I remember most following the 08-09 economic recession. And he remained cautiously optimistic that he knew our country and our province could rebound with exports, with trade diversification, with innovation, with investments in our young people in education, with low taxes and reduction in red tape and the regulatory burden. He knew that we can get through this. There is a pathway, there is a model to prosperity, and you cannot tax your way out. You can't tax your way to prosperity. We want to create the conditions for jobs and growth by unleashing the potential in our people. And I'm really just grateful for the opportunity to reaffirm that optimism, and I hope you share it. So thank you all. God bless you. I really appreciate Vijay for the opportunity, and thank you so much for your patience as I got on today.
Thank you very much, Minister Lecce. It was very nice hearing all your thoughts, also your journey. I think there was a sprinkling of value-based leadership that you kind of intertwined in there. So thank you very much, Minister Lecce, and from all our kids as well. I don't know if you really talk to them, but my son says thank you very much, and we really appreciate the work that you're doing. So with that, I will move to the next segment here. We've got
Vijay, quickly.
You can either hang around, or if you've got other stuff to do, we understand. But if you want to, you can definitely hang around as well. We're going to be going to the panel discussion, so I leave that entirely up to you. Thank you, Minister Lecce.
Vijay, after you introduce, if you don't mind, I have one quick question. There's a lot of 2-3 questions came. I'll just combine into one and ask him if he likes to leave early.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Lecce. Would you have time for one question?
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir. I think we are very much inspired with your young leadership, and we know you were in the Harper's when he was the Prime Minister, working there and building close relationship with India. I think we enjoyed the best relationship that time when you were part of that team when Modi came. So yes. I know you had a big role in that. So here, a lot of parents are also part of the panel, and they have sent questions, and they're keen because there's a famous saying that end of education is basically character. So when we are building a business and we are building business leaders with good values and good character, the whole raw material comes from the schools. So if the school children are given in a professional way a training to integrate values into the curriculum so that they become better citizens, holding a better character and their respect, and whole humanity has got common values. So what is the focus? How your government in the coming months, I mean, we know you're passing through a lot of, due to COVID and all kind of situations and emergency, and a lot of administrative things have to be done. But as a long-term strategy of your government, you being a young leader, and we have a lot of hopes you can lead it through, how do you we can integrate values into the curriculum so that we get a better end product who thinks good character, good values, respect for everybody?
Yeah, it's a really positive question. I appreciate that, Mr. Sharma. I was working with Prime Minister Harper when we had the historic visit of Prime Minister Modi, and I'll never forget, he gave me a props, which I thought was, I thought only the young people did that. So he was the first older gentleman to do it to me, and very interesting person. We saw the leadership in Gujarat and other regions that he governed in. I think there's an entrepreneurial pathway that can be learned around the world of some of the work that he did to attract foreign investment. And so we want to do the same here. But to your point on values, that is such an important point. I think one thing that we often need to better do in education is to build up a character of these young men and women and pride in our country, that we live in a country, the values of freedom, of democracy, of human rights, the rule of law, of civility and compassion. These are the Canadian values that I think define us and they have for generations. So we are revising the curriculum with a message or with a lens of ensuring that character development, that civil discourse, that the idea of debates and disagreement is a strength. Because we live in a society where if you disagree with some people, it's part of the cancel culture. If they disagree with you, they just want to get rid of you. That's not democracy. That's not freedom. We need to create a generation of young people who know how to debate, how to exchange ideas, how to passionately articulate their perspective. So we're building up the skills to do that, particularly through ideas of critical thinking, concepts of understanding lessons from history and applying them to the contemporary sense, and really going away from just learning about these abstract concepts and making the young people apply them by doing more case studies, having them think critically through and apply them in their lives. So there's a lot of character building we do in the ministry. We're going to be doing more of it. And from a value perspective, one value I seek to really build up is a sense of patriotism and service, that our young people could make a difference in public service. They could literally help change the world. I mean, that should not be, a talking point. And so we're trying to achieve that through a curriculum that's updated, that's labor aligned, and also gives them the life skills. What I'm hearing from you is much of this is about creating life skills that they can apply in school, but also after school, well beyond school. And so we're going to build up those foundations through our curriculum reforms. And I'm really excited about some of it because it's going to really encourage young people to believe in service, in public service, and the concept of giving back and of contributing and punching above our weight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
really
Thank you,
appreciate
Mr. Leche. And I think Mr. Sharma already went ahead, but I will just take 30 seconds to introduce Mr. Sharma. So if we can just have a slide up, and then Mr. Sharma will be leading our panel discussion. So Mr. Sharma is the Vice President Director of Indo-Canada Chamber of Commerce, but Sam Sharma also did his electrical engineering from IIT Delhi. Those of you who do not know of the IIT, it's a premier, it's the MIT equivalent of India. He's also been with multinational company India, Bahrain, UAE, Canada. There is project manager, engineering, marketing, and strategic planning. Since 2001, he's been deeply engaged in a company that he founded, Power Saving Systems, that assists Canadian industry to reduce the carbon footprint by reducing electricity usage. So, Surinder Sharma, Sharmaji, if you have anything else to add to your bio, please do so. And the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much. I think since we are behind time, I will not go around and I wanted to talk a few more things, but I think I'll make that short. And I will right away bring the two panelists who have come from the Canadian Institute of Satya Sai Education, and they are two practicing people who have brought in values, one in academic, one in business. So I will go ahead and introduce the first speaker, which is Dr. Basil Chen. He is a professor of accounting and finance at Toronto. And like you see his Chinese name, but let me let you all know that he is Indo-Canadian because he's born in Calcutta. He's a Calcutta Chinese. So he's one with us, and he believes in practicing values, both at work, and his research has been in values. And he has worked at senior leadership and management positions in both private and public sector before going into academic. And he did his PhD in values-driven leadership from Chicago, and then he did his CPA. Then he's also an alumni of Wilfrid Laurier University, where he did his MBA earlier. And he resides in Toronto, and his daughter went to Satya Sai School, which I mentioned that they integrate the values into the curriculum. So the reason he picked up that school, because he strongly believes values, he breathes values, he teaches values. And over to Dr. Chen.
So Sharma, thank you. Thank you for your generous introduction there. Welcome one and all. And as an academic, okay, let's go to my agenda slide here. As an academic, I've always been, how would I put it, faulted, if you will, that it is too theoretical. Whatever you have to, say, it is too theoretical. Whatever you have to do, it is, we cannot quite practice it. We cannot quite apply it. So I'm going to change the dynamics a little bit for tonight's session with everybody who is attending tonight. I wanted to make it as experiential as possible. Okay, by that I mean, let me be extremely bold here. Okay, it's a different kind of a paradigm. Let me be extremely bold by saying, in the next 15 or 20 minutes that we have together, okay, that you have on a Friday afternoon, you have given up time to partake, okay, in this session. So I want to use this time wisely, okay? I want to invite you, literally, I want to invite all of us into this cauldron, if you will, this cauldron of direct experience where we can marinate in this concept called values-driven leadership. Okay, leaving all the academic stuff aside, so to speak. Okay, so we will touch on that to the extent that we need to. Okay, but more importantly, I want this today's conversations, if you will, in the next 15, 20 minutes to be about us. We have enough. If we were to just go out there and Google values-driven leadership, more than likely we will get 1 billion hits on the subject matter. So getting information, gathering informations, vacuuming informations is not, that is not the challenge. I think the challenge over here is the practice of leadership. What are we going to do with all these informations? What has it got to do with you and I? Okay, so what I want to do is I want to invite you literally into this virtual cauldron, I call it, of direct experience where we can marinate in our direct experience. Because most of the time we look outside. What does somebody have to say? What does this professor have to say? What does so-and-so have to say? Very seldom do we turn it back inside to go, what do I have to say? What is my voice? Where do I stand on this thing? So I want to spend significant amount of time, if I may, on the practice, okay, of what I call values-driven leadership. In order to do that, what I will do is give you a little bit of a presentation context, define what we mean by values and leadership, okay, followed by the research, okay, that is supporting the whole notion, okay, that practicing values matters. So what you see up here on the slide over here is what I call the truism of business. It's kind of like a business axioms, if you will, taken for granted ideas. So for most of us, okay, this is a Chamber of Commerce kind of a event. Looking at the profiles, a lot of you are business leaders, be it small business, be it some of you are CEOs of companies, and some of you are, some of you maybe even be academics. But at the end of the day, all these principles applies. Okay, so So the first truism over here, let me just read it out quickly, is business represents a force for the good. It's pretty much a settled kind of a paradigm. Okay, so look at the most recent leadership, from Pfizer, AstraZeneca, Moderna, pharmaceutical companies coming out with shot in the arm, okay, to deal with the COVID-19 scenario. So it's a settled thing. Business represents a force for the good. That said, profit-seeking organizations, okay, if you're a business, profit-seeking organizations, we're not talking about not-for-profit organizations. They are genetically coded to make money at the end of the day by whatever measure, whether they are seeking increased market share, increasing their, adding value to their shareholders as measured by share price, by whatever measure. At the end of the day, profit-seeking organizations are genetically coded to make money. And the next assertion we're going to say is, it is possible to do good and do well at the same time. Okay, so it is possible, okay, to do good, social good, that is, okay. If you take a look at Pfizer's, okay, the Pfizer's of the world right now, if you were to take a look at their books, they are doing good, okay, from a profitability standpoint. But at the same time, they are providing tremendous amount of social good. Okay, and research also supports the notion that leadership impacts organizational performance. It's kind of almost like a truism. It was almost like my young teenagers would call it the duh moment. Duh, I mean, it is such an obvious thing. Okay, that why do you even need research to confirm this axiom, if you will? Okay, that leadership matters. And you can see it, okay, in different leadership paradigms, such as authentic leadership, ethical leadership, transformational leadership, servant leaderships. Academics are chiming in to these conversations, actively engaged in these conversations. So what we're going to do next, we're going to go ahead and quickly define what leadership is for the purpose of these conversations, followed by the definitions of what we mean when we say values, okay? So if we take a look at leadership, the nascent definitions of leadership, if you will, without any adjectives put in front of it, looking at a dictionary, okay, leadership is nothing but, an individual who guides and directs a group, okay? Okay, the nascent definition of leadership, and some academics and practitioners over time have been, banging their head trying to define leadership. Okay, I think an academic by the name of Chuela, summarizes it really well when she said, the ultimate point of studying leadership is what is good leadership. It is not just about studying leadership, because a leader can lead us astray. Okay, so the studying of leadership is ultimately, at the end of the day, is what is good leadership. Okay, so the use of the word good here has two dimensions: morally good and technically good, okay, or effective. So for the statement, she's a good leader to be true, it must be true that she is effective and also ethical. So fundamentally, the focus that we are trying to say over here is leadership matters. When we talk about leadership, it has a moral foundation at the end of the day. It is underpinned by ethics and morals when we talk about leadership. Next, we're going to pivot into values, okay? What do we mean when we say values? Again, I want to really invite you to stay closer to our own direct experience. So anytime when we invoke the word values, we already know what it is. So I'm inviting ourselves, this afternoon, this evening, okay, to go, what is it? It is something that is near and dear to us. This is, nobody has to tell us what our value is. With a little bit of a self-inspection, okay, which we're going to get into later, okay, we can pretty much sort of like ID them. Okay, so values are individuals' ideas as to what is right, good, and what is desirable. Okay, we may, some of us may value a good education. Some of us would value wealth. Some of us would value health. Okay, so whatever that is, so they are concepts or beliefs that guide us in terms of how we make our decisions and how we behave. And most of our values are formed in our early years. Okay, so this is a well-known psychological fact. And that is why value education is so important at an early years. Schools such as I School of Toronto, is really contributing, in my view, to society. Okay, so developing at the ground level, okay, of character education. And values tends to be relatively stable and enduring. It endures over time. So by the time an individual reach their teenage years, their sense of what is right and what is wrong in their own view are pretty much carved in stone and set. And it is going to be fairly stable and endures over time. Some examples of values, okay? Can we go back to the previous slide, please? So some examples of values: honesty, self-respect, autonomy, equality, fairness, loyalty, freedom. We can go ahead and add on and on and on and on. We can go all the way back to the Aristotelian perspective on some of the virtues. Okay, we can add, truth-telling. We can add, self-respect. We can go ahead and whole bunch of other values we can put in there. Okay. So the question over here is, I want to pivot back to organizations practicing values. So how does an organization, okay, use value as a competitive advantage, if you will, okay, to add value to their organizations? So can we identify an organization's core values? So if you look at an organizations, can we pick up what their core values are? And using an iceberg kind of an analogy, okay, there's a certain things that we can see, okay, through their processes and policy. For instance, okay, a lot of us are, shop at Costco, okay. We see some of their policy, some of their customer return policy, okay, that is extremely friendly customer return policy, if you will. And that is something that what we can see, okay? But what is it that they're saying? What is it that they truly believe in? Some of the underlying assumptions, it is submerged underneath, we can't see, okay? So what I want to do right now is take a look at an organizational level. How does organizations use core values as a guiding principle, as a sort of like as an organization's North Star to guide them along to add value to their organizations? So I wanted to bring out 4 organizations, 4 companies, 4 Canadian companies, okay, in their own words, core values stated in their own words. I lifted the values from their own website. Okay, what do they have to say? What is their true North Star, if you will? Okay, so I've got Royal Bank, I have Canadian Tire, I have MEC, and I have Glentel. So let's go back to take a look at a Royal Bank. Okay, so Royal Bank is now saying our core values, what really guides us, how we conduct our business, okay, is the following, okay, client first. So we can look at it that it is really, they are really, like client first, customer centric. We can look at it that way. Collaborations, accountability, diversity and inclusion, and integrity. So I highlighted it in red, okay? And because this value, this integrity value cuts across all 4 organizations that I picked. The next one, Canadian Tire, okay? Integrity, honesty, and respect. And let's take a look at the next one is MEC, that's Mountain Equipment Corp. They're a sports, outdoor sports manufacturer. They sell a lot of outdoor gear, camping gear, mountaineering kind of a gear, winter clothing, summer clothing, camping gear. And look at some of their values. They value quality. They will use that as a guiding principle to lead their organizations forward. Use it as their North Star. Integrity, cooperations, creativity, and humanity. Okay. And again, integrity is repeated. So they have picked out this notion of integrity, truth telling, if you will. And the last organizations that I picked out to sort of like give us a sense, okay, of when organizations talk about core values, okay, what are they really talking about, okay? And the next organizations is Glentel. They are you know, the CEO is going to speak more about it, you know, following my presentation. Glentel is a telecommunications company. It's a national telecommunications company, and they have mobility services. You know, they deal with cell phones. So if you shop at Costco, walk through the malls, you see kiosks. Okay, you know, that's Glentel. So the guiding principles that Glentel uses is trust, respect, ownership, passion, humility. Yet again, this notion of integrity. Here is where I wanted to pivot into, okay, what I called having us practice leadership, you know, getting ourselves direct experience of what it is like, okay, practicing leaderships rather than talking about leadership. It's kind of like this mango, okay? I want to eat the mango. I don't want to just talk about the mangoes, okay? So let's go ahead and eat the mango rather than talk about the mangoes. So if we go back to the previous slides, if I were to go back to the previous slides, organization as such don't exist. Individual exists. So when we talk about organizational values, whether if it is, you know, Glentel saying it, MEC that is saying it, you know, when we say organizational values, organizations as such don't exist. What exists are individuals. If individuals are the only entity, so to speak, that exists, it is the individual values that matters. Okay, so now we're going to dive into, we want to now swim in this territory, swim in this cauldron, if you will. Okay, and to help us do that, I'm going to rely on two giants in the field. Okay, I call them a scholar practitioner. Okay, the first one is Bill George. He's the former CEO of Medtronic, a large healthcare provider. Okay, a manufacturer. Okay, and biomedical stuff. And get some pointers from him, okay, to sort of like help, you know, have use their voice to stir our pot, if you will, okay, to make sense, okay, of the practice of leadership. So let's take a look at what Bill George has to say. So I call Bill a scholar practitioner. So I really like this idea that here it is not, he's an individual who have lived it, so to speak, okay, who was a CEO, who was a chairman, okay, who of a very complex company, and after retirement he came back into academia, wrote books about it, and sort of like tried to light the candles for future generations. Scholar practitioner. So pointers from contemporary leaders. Let's see what he has to say about the practice of leadership, okay, in particular, authentic leadership, authentic leaders. So here's what he has to say. He says, leaders are defined by their values and their character. The values of authentic leaders are shaped by personal beliefs, developed through study, introspection, consultations with others, and a lifetime of experience. Let me underscore that, okay, and a lifetime of experience. And he goes further. He says, integrity is the one value that is required in every authentic leader. And integrity is not the absence of lying, but telling the whole truth. Okay, so this is what Bill George has to say, and let's see what the next leader has to say, Harry Kramer. So very similar to Bill, Harry was also a CEO, okay, of a large, you know, again, by chance, it's also a huge medical supplies kind of a company, okay, Baxter International. And full disclosure here, about 10 years ago, I was under the tutelage of Harry himself, okay. And let's hear what Harry has to say. So Harry, here's what he has to say. He says, self-reflection is central to your leadership. Self-reflections, the ability to just sit there and contemplate, okay? Self-reflection is central to your leadership. The more you self-reflect, the better you know yourself, your strength, your weaknesses, abilities, and the area to be developed. Being self-aware, you know what you stand for and what is important to you. Grounded in your self-knowledge, your leadership becomes more authentic. Okay, so Harry, after he retired from Baxter, he went back to academia. Okay, I think he is teaching out from Northwestern University right now on, in the Kellogg School of Management. So in my view, these scholars practitioners are, giants in the field. They really contribute to society. Okay, based on their practical experience as well as theory. Okay. So now let's go ahead and take a look at what I call the practice of leadership. How do we go about it? I wanted to take a deep dive, if you will, into exploring two values, okay? Authenticity and integrity, okay? So coming back to my opening statement, if you will, that I am still inviting you, okay, to jump into this virtual cauldron, okay? All of us, whoever that is online right now with us, explore these two values of authenticity and integrity using some of the questions on the right, which I will get into, okay? So I want to peel back the onions, okay, of this two values, highly related values of authenticity and integrity. Okay, let's peel them back and see, okay, what we find. Okay, as on a Friday afternoon. Okay, and as we peel back the onions, we know what happens when we peel onions. When we peel onions, tears will flow. Okay, so as you peel back the onions, if there are tears, let them flow. And as you peel back the onions, sometimes there's a lot of joy there. Okay, let them glow. Okay, what do I value? We're going to use the first question to sort of really try to explore, if you will, this question of what is value. So the question, the endeavor, if you will, that we are trying to attempt to do this afternoon is, instead of answering these questions from an academic point of view, we want to use our own direct experience to ask ourselves in a very, very genuine way, what do I value? What is it that is meaningful to me? What is it that is near and dear to me? Okay, is it money? Okay, and as we explore this question, what is it that I value? Okay, things will surface, sometimes, we say what I value is a good education. What I value is making lots of money. What I value is a comfortable life. So we continue to explore, what is it that I value? And sometimes we as an example, okay, if we ask ourselves deep enough, what is it that I value? Sometimes there'll be an image that may pop up in our mind's eye, if you will, an experience. We may remember our grandfather, for instance, okay, who has given us unconditional love, although the man never used the word love. Okay, he feed us. You may have been fed, all those oranges. He would have peeled the oranges, and fed us, bounced us on his lap. Okay, and knowing that he is tired, he says, I want to play football. The old man gets up and play football with you, knowing that he has arthritis. Okay, foot is hurting. He goes out there and kick the ball with you together. Okay, and okay, sorry about that. I got encountered a little bit of a technical stuff on my end. Okay, no issues. So sometimes with the good old grandfather, sometimes when we do something that is naughty, if you will, we commit a bad act, okay, and you were expecting your grandfather to punish you, Okay, but all you got instead was just a loving look. Okay, unconditional loving look. Okay, without screaming, without scolding at you, but making full contact with you. The love that he is pouring in you is unwavering. And then you begin to wonder, here is where my value of, if you have nothing good to say about somebody, don't say it. If you have nothing to, so you may have been practicing that. You go, where does that value come from? That value was injected into us early on in our childhood. So it could be one of that. Okay, so we wanted to go ahead and explore, what is it that I value? What is it that I value? Okay, another value could be I'm basically an honest person. Okay, but honest up to a point. Okay, you tell the truth about it. I'm honest up to a point. Okay, I will tell the truth up to a point. Okay, and next we'll try to peel the onions again. Next up is authenticity. What do we mean when we say authenticity? Okay, what is it like to practice authenticity? Okay, and how do I practice authenticity? So let's go ahead let's answer the first questions first. What does authenticity mean? So authenticity simply means being real, being genuine. Okay, no masks. Okay, so you know, the relationship, like what the image that gets conjures up is a baby, you know, a child. Okay, that is if they are crying, the intensity of the cry, they are authentic about their cry. It is real, it is unpretentious, and that is why we love children so much. When they laugh, it is unpretentious. Okay, it is absolutely authentic. Okay, and the question here is, how do I go about practicing authenticity? Okay, how do I go about being real? Okay, we start from where we are. We start from where we are. We tell the truth about where we are. Okay, you know, many times, as a very simple example, people may ask us, how are you doing? Okay, so if I were to ask you, okay, how are you doing? Most of us go, I'm doing well, I'm fine. Okay, how are you? It's almost like a robotic kind of a response. Okay, so if we go, how am I really doing? Okay, you know, reflect on the job. Maybe I'm not too happy with what I'm doing at my job. Okay, and we need to practice authenticity from a more deliberately random, rather than in a random manner. Okay, rather than random act of kindness. Okay, practicing a value of kindness, random act of kindness. We go ahead and busy office day as an example. Okay, you run down from your office tower, go down there, get your lunch. You want to head back to your tower, running back, and you see a homeless guy, you know, and for whatever reason it moves you. You give your lunch to the guy. Random act of kindness. Don't ask me. Don't ask why I did that. I just did that. Okay, random act of kindness. What we are saying over here is, how do I go about practicing things? It needs to be deliberate. Kindness needs to be a deliberate act of kindness rather than a random act of kindness. Deliberate act of authenticity rather than a random act of authenticity. Okay, most of us gets into what we call the been there, done that. I've practiced this thing enough, been there, done that, seen that. Okay, how many times do we breathe a day? How many times do we breathe in a minute? 12 to 20 times a minute. We can't say, I took my last breath. Okay, been there, done that. I'm not gonna breathe anymore. Okay, so the practicing of authenticity is very deliberate in nature. Okay, and the next question that we're going to use to help us peel the onion back is hiding the truth the same as lying? Now we are getting into, as we dive into this practice, if you will, okay, we begin to encounter nuances. Okay, we begin to encounter nuances that requires a certain level of wisdom and discrimination, if you will. okay, to discriminate what is right and what is wrong, okay, and sometimes we don't do full disclosure, okay, we don't do full disclosure about, you know, for example, some of you may, you know, sometimes one may be misidentify you as something that you are not. Okay, so if you are not a, you know, an engineer, okay, somebody assumed they think that you're an engineer, and then you says, oh, you graduated from, you know, IIT, and you didn't. For whatever reason, they assume that you have, and you just let it go. You basically hide the truth. You basically hide the truth, okay, and let it go. The last one, okay, which is a very interesting one. Most of us sitting in this room would ask this obvious questions. You know, what do I get from being authentic? You know, what do I get from this thing? If I were to practice authenticity, you know, what do I get out of it? You know, we do live in what we call a quid pro quo kind of a society. Okay, if I'm going to do this, I will get that. If I'm going to get an education, I will get my job. Okay, if I work certain number of hours, I need to get paid. You know, what is the return on my investment? So if I were to invest, okay, on being authentic, what am I going to get from it? Okay, so my response would be, well, you tell me, you tell us. Okay, so if you've been marinating, if you've been practicing, I'm interested in hearing, you know, we are interested in hearing, you know, as practitioners, that if we have done this, what do you think the outcome is going to be? So based on what I have, reports that I have received from folks who have been marinating, if you will, okay, in this cauldron, okay, at an organizational level. For example, they will say that, hey, you know, your institutional generosity will increase at an institutional level. You will have institutional collegiality. Okay, simple illustration and example would be situations where, you know, you're walking by, walking by your colleague is sitting there trying to prepare, you know, last minute trying to prepare a presentation, you know, banging away. You walk by and you see a typo. Okay, and you point that out. Okay, generous, you could have walked away, okay, let them go ahead and make the mistake, but in fact you didn't. You go ahead and you point that out. It could be a spreadsheet, a complex, you know, consolidation spreadsheet. You know, they're working away, banging away at the, waiting for the external auditors to come in, and there is a sitting in the spreadsheet is a macro transactions that they can't quite understand, but you have done that before. So if you see that thing, you can go, hey, you know, instead of you spending 2 days trying to pull out all the binders and figure out what that thing is, you can go ahead and tell them what the issue is, okay, and solve that answers very, very quickly. And at a personal level, what do you get? What do I get when I'm being authentic? Okay. Subject to your own confirmations, let me just put some markers down. Some of us would say that what I'm going to be getting, what I will get is you will find that one of the signposts of practicing authenticity is tremendous sense of psychological freedom. By psychological freedom, I mean, you tend not to worry too much about what other people will think of you. Okay, what other people will think of you. So I think I've been taking a lot. I think Ravi needs to get on right now to Mr. Sharma to wrap up this session. So I will make one last point and pass the baton back to him. Okay. The last point I want to make is to summarize this is individual transformations really leads to societal transformations, because society overall as such does not exist, so to speak. Okay, it is individuals that exist. So the individual transformations inevitably will lead to societal transformations. Okay, so as I leave this, you know, on a Friday afternoon, you know, as I leave this talk, I want to thank everybody, okay, for coming out, okay, you spending your valuable time to come out. And I do want to end by saying that this mask over here, I cannot leave without addressing COVID-19. The word infection, okay, is getting a very, very pejorative connotations, if you will. We don't want to infect each other. 2020 and 2021 is hopefully I want to change that definitions of infections. Okay, I wanted to say to all of us in this room right now, okay, to say, may we all infect each other. Let me repeat, may we all infect each other, okay, with our values. Okay, with our values. Okay, so infection does not have to be pejorative. If we can infect each other with COVID, we can certainly infect each other with our values. We can infect each other with our authenticity. We can infect each other with our generosity. So with that, Sharmaji, I know that I have encroached on Mr. Nicholas' time. Okay, so I will quickly pass the baton back to you. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chen. That was wonderful. And actually, we felt like we should go on and on, but since there's a limited time, so we'll have to pass on to Ravi. Ravi, I know Ravi since 1991, while we were in Dubai, because my company where I used to work as a general manager in Jumbo Electronics was the sole distributor of Sony products in the UAE. And Ravi with Sony had a big warehouse in Jebel Ali where they used to bring all the stuff from Japan to feed the Middle East market. So I know him since those days. He has been a very, very dynamic leader and practicing values. And having worked with Sony from India, Canada, Middle East, and US, he switched over now as president and CEO of Glentel Inc., who are also a leading communication company with several stores across Canada. Whatever you see at Costco, all the communication products is basically he's doing under the banner of Costco. So basically his boys are sitting there in Costco. So, and Ravi has been also awarded the top 25 CEOs in Canada by Glassdoor Annual Employee Choice Award. And as you know, he's an MBA and a very, very successful businessman who is practically practicing values down the line up to each employee. Let's hear his story. Over to Ravi.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Sharma. Now, when we move on, first of all, I'm honored to present value-driven business leadership on behalf of Canadian Institute of Such High Education, whose foundations are built on human values. That's a very important thing there. And most of the presentation, basically, it's in my opinion, when you talk about a person or about a company, our impression over time is built on values which they follow and which they stand by. So when we move to the next, so what exactly are values? Basically, we talk about values all the time. Sorry, can you go back? So in terms of values itself, basically, when we think about having values is one, but following is another one. But it's mainly focused on common sense. Values are built on common sense over a period of time, over generations. And we follow them knowingly or unknowingly, we follow the values in our professional as well as in personal life. And most importantly, values are used to make the right decision, the right choices across the company. So I'm going to focus a little more on the business side of the values. If you move forward, it's quite simply, it's your behavior when nobody is around you or nobody is watching, basically. It's as simple as that. It's how we behave when nobody is watching us, when nobody is around us, and doing the right thing is the most important thing. And Professor Chan talked about integrity. That's what it's all about, is doing the right thing, especially when you have the responsibility. When you have the responsibility, how do you behave? And in terms of followed by that is when you look at it, it's a lighthouse. It's your guide, especially when you face challenges. Everyone goes through challenges. In today's environment, when you look at it, it's challenging times. Values are the lighthouse that guides every action. And when you look at, if you want to be really successful at these times, there's no shortcuts. You cannot take shortcuts for short-term goals, especially in business. I think it's most important thing for us is not to take shortcuts and follow the values in these challenging times. And also something you would stand up at any cost. That's the most important thing. If you firmly believe in the core values, no matter what the challenge is, or we face or the companies face, we cannot give them up. These are the foundations of our existence, of companies which cannot be compromised. Values guide us through tough times and make us stronger and fit to win over competition. That's the most important thing. I think we need to look at, these are the challenging times. How do you stand up at any cost? And in terms of the beliefs, basically, these are the beliefs that influence every aspect of our lives, including moral judgment, response to others, and commitment to goals. In business, of course, we all values always play a critical role in our judgment, but the way we behave and our commitment to the goals is the most important thing. And these values, when you follow over a period of time, will create the culture of the company. They form the culture of the company. And the culture of the company will help us to achieve the strategy or the goals. It's not the strategy that achieves the goals, it's the culture that achieves the goals of the company. That's why values are so important. And in terms of values, of course, Professor Chan talked about personal values and company values. There are different personal values and company values, especially in today's day and age. When we talk about millennials, I think Minister talked about the younger generation, younger audiences and all. When we talked about millennials, they are born with these values and they basically try to emulate these values more than any other generation. And they value whether it is social responsibility or the culture of the company. In fact, we do interview a lot of millennials in our company. The average age is 26 years. We have 1,700 employees. And I do deal with them a lot. And the most important question they ask when they want to join the company is, what is your culture like? What are the values you follow? What is your social responsibility looks like? In fact, based on a lot of millennials, our charitable foundation is supporting hospital for sick children. That's coming out of the millennials talking to us and saying, this is where we need to support. So it's really important to address the millennial aspect going forward in terms of values. Go to the next. In terms of when we look at personal values versus company values, creativity or love, kindness, leadership, those are all the personal values. Hope, spirituality, gratitude. I think gratitude comes loud and clear in today's day and age. We all are grateful for what we have. If we are healthy, we are grateful. If we have a job, we are grateful. So gratitude is really important in today's, and it's been most talked about value, I'm sure, in the last 12 months. If you move forward, when you look at company values, again, as Professor Chan mentioned, integrity is really important. That comes loud and clear. And there are values like respect, teamwork, collaboration. And the most important thing is every company, of course, we do have 6 values when we looked at Glental values, but there are core values that define the DNA of the company or define the culture of the company. That's why it's really important to identify the core values and make sure that we do not, we live up to those values and we do not compromise on those values. That's the most important thing. And moving forward, when we look at what exactly, of course, I talked about the values. What exactly is the value-driven business leadership? Of course, leading the team and evaluating performance by your own as well as team based on organizational set of values. We normally evaluate based on results, based on revenue, based on profit, based on OPEX. Now, those are things, but also we need to make sure that we measure based on the organizational set of values, which is critical. Mission and values, of course, every company has a mission. And when I look at some of the Canadian companies which I follow, like Shopify, which is the e-commerce platform company, they have a very simple mission statement saying, make commerce better for everyone. So they want to make sure that every company, every small, medium-sized business, their commerce is better. That's their mission. So they keep it simple and they make sure that everybody understands. Leaders should believe and follow the values to the core. I think that's the most important thing. Is it's important that the tone is set at the top. The leaders follow what we preach or what we say in terms of our values. And actually, there is a zero tolerance policy. There should be a zero tolerance policy in terms of people not following the values, the core values. In fact, if some of the top performers, if they don't follow the value, it's better to let them go. Rather, if not, they create a toxic work environment. And as I said, tone has to be set at the top, and leaders have to follow, because everybody is watching the leaders, what they're going to do, how they are behaving, and what they do. So everyone gets a clear perspective on what should be done based on what leaders do. And the essence of value-driven leadership, when you look at it's continuous improvement. It's not that one day you follow value, it's done for the day. No, you need to continuously look at following values, constantly strive to do better as leaders. And keeping things simple is really important. We complicate things a lot in business, but simplicity is the excellence of business. So how do we keep things simple? And using common sense. Sometimes common sense is uncommon in today's day and age. That's why we have to now say use common sense all the time. It's really important. And taking initiative is important, because we need to show by example. Whatever leaders want others to do, you better do it. Otherwise, then nobody is going to follow. So if you have a clear mission, have values and goals, that drives the culture of the company. And when we move forward, when you look at it, this is one example. I like it, actually. This is an example of a global company with visions and values. When you look at it, the vision says, to become the world's leading company, creating innovation and efficient solutions for growing economies and better environment worldwide. It's a great vision when you look at it. They have respect, integrity, communication, excellent. So I keep asking, actually, I use this slide with my employees as well. And in the bottom, I say, would you like to work for this company? Here I said, what do you think about this company? Everybody says, yeah, it's a great company. I would like to work for it. But when you move forward and look at exactly what this company is all about, this is Enron. People, maybe some of the youngsters may not know Enron, but in my age, when you look at 2000, when you're in business, you know Enron. The previous values which I showed was Enron. They have not basically followed the values. The values are for posters. They put posters everywhere. Across the company, you see values. In any company you go, the hallway will have posters, the meeting rooms will have posters, sometimes the washroom will have posters. By the end of the day, those posters are for posters only. If you're really not walking the talk, this is what happens. And Enron got into scandals in 2000, and the company became bankrupt. It used to be a $100 billion company. It was an envy of American culture. 6 times awards they have won across the globe. But the basic point here is the leaders have not followed the values. There are 22,000 employees. Does that mean that all 22,000 have not followed the values? No, it's the top leadership that basically couldn't follow the values, and that brought the company down. Not just the company, but the investors, millions of investors who invested in Enron, they lost their 401k plans in US. And supporting them was Arthur Andersen at that time. Basically didn't even follow the values. Here is where, as Professor Chan said, authenticity. It's critical. You need to live by what you say. Enron, being a company of the $100 billion, they could not live by what they said. So as a result, basically, you don't find Enron now today anywhere else. So if you move on, not just companies, even people, wealth and position is not equal to values. These are some of the leaders at one time used to be the great leaders in the industry. All of them have come down. Everyone will be watching the leaders. Again, as Professor Chan said, authenticity is the most important. These leaders were not authentic, but they are some Fortune 500 companies. What they say and what they do have been totally different. Some of these examples I'm showing here is to what not to do is the most important thing here. What not to do is the most important thing. These people have created toxic cultures, ethical concerns, racial discrimination, when you look at it. And these are some of those examples. And it's not about when you lead one person or 2 people, the principles are the same. The most important thing is leaders have to follow first, and then others will follow. And as a result of some of these leaders, the impact will be on stakeholders, employees, investors, suppliers, and customers. So these are some of the examples of top companies where we should not do. Having said that, when we move on, when you look at it, what exactly when you look at the corporate culture built on right values, there's a list of values on the left-hand side and the impact on the behavior. I don't want to go through all that in the constraints of time, but values define the culture of the company. And that's the most important thing. I keep repeating that because that's the most important thing. You may have a simple mission, a brilliant strategy, but if you do not have a right culture, your strategy will go to breakfast. It's not going to work. You cannot execute the strategy. And in fact, some of the examples of right values, leaders will focus on one or two core values that forms the DNA. I just want to highlight the core values of Glentel. A part of it is ownership here, or passion. Our employees are passionate. And in fact, one thing I want to highlight is, how do you get the right talent is the most important thing. So it goes back to your culture, your values, at the same time, the recruitment. The recruiting team should make sure that you don't recruit based on skills, but you recruit based on skills and behavior. That's the most important thing when you look at recruitment, and then you have a long innings to play. And moving on, and in fact, one thing I want to highlight here before summary is, I showed some of the example what not to, but there are a lot of companies that are most ethical companies in the world. Actually, there is a rating that company provides about the most ethical companies. There are a lot of companies in the list, around 130 companies. In Canada, there are companies like Bank of Montreal, Capital Power out of Alberta. I think Covenant Health, it is out of Alberta too. There are 3-4 companies, and there are 3 Indian companies too. And I'm sure most of you would know, it's not surprising to see Tata Steel, Wipro, and Infosys being the most ethical companies in the world. Of course, there are other companies like Lego, IBM, Microsoft, L'Oreal, Disney, IKEA, and Sony are all part of those ethical companies. So I'm sure you can just follow them later on, Google them, you find all that information. But in summary, when you look at it, the values, basically the leaders are the key. We need to focus basically who we are rather than what position we held. Position has nothing to do with values. Values can start from the entry-level employee, but the leaders may have to make sure that they follow the values without looking at the position. True leadership is about earning confidence by our example. It's again, leading by example is the most important thing. If you do not do it, don't expect others to do it. It's as simple as that. Peter Drucker, a management thinker, says, if you think you are a leader and no one is following you, you are just taking a walk on your own. There's nobody behind you. Value-based leaders effectively engage, motivate, and develop their followers, establishing a culture that drives employee engagement, organizational performance, and customer satisfaction. I think values is everyone's responsibility. It's not just the CEO, but everybody has their part to play. And sometimes leaders should not hesitate to admit that they do not know. And basically, you won't expect everyone to know everything. That's why you have a team to make sure that everybody knows everything, and you can admit that you don't know what you don't know. Most of the leaders today, actually, when you look at it from day one, when you are in a leadership position, you should not forget where you came from. You came from a cubicle. You came from, don't forget that. And today somebody else is sitting in that cubicle, and make sure that everybody follows the values. And finally, everyone in the company has a responsibility to follow the values. And if you have a right culture, you have a winning formula. And as I said in the beginning, values determine the behavior, and behavior determines who you really are. And that, which is the most important thing. And once you know who you really are, and you have a right behavior, and you have a success in the business. Thank you very much.
Sharmaji, I think you're on mute. Sharmaji, you're on mute.
Thank you, Ravi, again for a wonderful presentation. And I think the time was so short, and I feel the subject is really, which needs a lot of deep thoughts and needs time, and we need to digest also. And if we have to practice values, then it's not just a magic that it will come overnight and we'll be able to transform things. So here I like to make another note that these two gentlemen who have come from the Canadian Institute of Satyasai Education are basically volunteers, and they have assured that if any members of the Indo-Canada Chamber of Commerce, any large corporation wants to bring a change and want to bring some values into their corporation, they'll be too happy to come. And since they are volunteers, they don't charge any fee, but they'll definitely guide you how to put values into practice and move forward. So I think we can build that kind of collaboration going forward and bring some transformation and bring some change how we conduct business. And I'm also hoping that since Vijay already announced in the beginning, we have a special promotion on taking up memberships. So I would expect Dr. Chen and Ravi to be joining also the Indo-Canada Chamber of Commerce as members. And also I look at Glentel. They're a very, very potential company to be one of the good sponsors of Indo-Canada Chamber of Commerce. I'm sure Ravi would also like that, and bringing them as a sponsor, I think we'll also induct more values into the chamber. So with that note, I thank you, both the speakers. We really appreciate your time. And also we are grateful to the Honorable Minister who came for 15 minutes and stayed more than 45 minutes and gave a total picture of his plan. And finally, before leaving, he assured he's going to focus on values and bringing some change in the school system. That will be great, and maybe we could do a follow-up also on that. So, Vijay, can we move on to thank the other sponsors? And we like to sponsor Tangentia Communications. They are our major sponsors doing these webinars. And our president, Vijay, owns this company, and we are thankful to him for all the sponsorships. We also have a number of other sponsors, media sponsors, which is Weekly Voice. Then we have PTC Punjabi, Turkish Airlines. Then we have two Indian banks, State Bank of India and ICCC Bank. They are our major sponsors. Then Raymond James, the Financial Institute, and Seneca College, and GT20. We are thankful to all these sponsors for today's program. And finally, a big thank you to all who attended, and we hope you enjoyed. And if there are any questions, do send us. We'll be too happy. And if somebody needs more supplementary information about these values, we can definitely provide, because it was a very compressed presentation, but I hope you all enjoyed, and thank you very much, and have a wonderful weekend, and thanks for staying late on Friday evening, and have a nice evening, and wish you all the best. Thank you. And thank you to the Indo-Canada Chamber, thank you to both ICC and Canadian Institute of Satya Sai Education for collaborating and making this program a success. Thank you. Good night.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.